Welcome back. You're listening to the discussion Innovation in Government, sponsored by Carasoft on Federal News Network. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guest today is Ed Kraychek, the manager of pre-sales engineers for Unstructured Data Business Unit for Dell Technologies. Ed, before break, we were talking a lot about some of the current trends we're seeing, the idea of moving from edge to core to cloud, this idea that there's a lot of unstructured data. This is not going away. This is going to be a challenge going forward. So when we talk about unstructured data, what are some of the innovations you're starting to see, especially around the multi-cloud environments?
Yeah, so thanks. That's a great question. We're seeing a lot of innovation in multi-cloud solutions, primarily around unstructured data. This is the focus of many agencies, especially in a cloud smart strategy, because they want to take advantage of the economies of scale in the cloud. What they also want to be able to do is take advantage of the different services that are in the cloud. Whether those are compute services, whether those are artificial intelligence services. A lot of different types of cloud services are available today, and so we want to be able to utilize those and take advantage of those. What we're seeing, I think, is one of the major innovations in cloud and multi-cloud is being able to put those file services directly in the cloud. So we've got native file services in the cloud now that we can access from the data center. So being able to use our normal file systems that are now being hosted in the cloud through high performance data links, saving the space, the real estate, the heating and cooling and stuff in the main data center, and basically making it an economical choice for performance file data, as well as the older archive file data.
And people hear economical choice, obviously cheaper, meaning as you're dealing with the kind of newer data, the fuel mission centric data.
Yep, I mean it's no secret that there was a lot of heartburn with the cloud early on, and that's why the federal government evolved from a cloud first to a cloud smart solution, because everybody knows that the egress rates can really be a cost barrier to be able to pull your data back and being able to really get access to data that you may have pushed out to the cloud. It's always free to push it out there, but it's hard to get it back. So yeah, I mean it's really around the economies and the services that are in the cloud, and being able to utilize what's most effective and most economical based on what you want to do. If you want to do nothing more than archive and disaster recovery in the cloud, that's pretty much primarily where we first saw data going. That's great too. But now that we're seeing a lot more innovation in the cloud around compute and virtualization, AI and machine learning types of services, we want to be able to take advantage of those when maybe the infrastructure to do that type of data analysis and run those types of applications are too costly to procure all that infrastructure, for on-premise situations. Now we can utilize those services in the cloud.
And I think when we talk about predictive analytics or AI or machine learning or whatever people kind of are calling it these days, I think that's one of those really fast movers within the government technology sector that if you look back over the last 20, 25 years, it just hasn't been picked up that quickly. A lot of other technologies that showed great promise just hadn't been picked up. Do you think agencies, because they've started to understand the cloud better, because they understand the power of understanding what data you have and how to apply the data, that's why it got picked up so quickly and we're seeing so much progress around how it's being used?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's because of the evolution of how the technologies that we're now seeing in the cloud, and being able to take advantages of agility in cloud developed apps and microservices and things like that, to be able to rapidly develop applications, being able to rapidly push out new releases and new functionality. It's just the increased the total velocity of the rate of change. And the federal government and government agencies are poised to be able to take advantage of those advancements.
When it comes to storage as well, are we in the world of innovation? Where does that play into it? Are you seeing, and Dell Technologies, I'm sure, is one of those folks that are giving agencies more access or different access to storage. But what's the big innovation around storage that's helping agencies kind of push toward that better services, faster services, cheaper services?
Yeah, I think it's the high speed infrastructure. Obviously, the development and proliferation of flash storage. It's a smaller footprint. The cost is coming way down on flash storage. It's extremely high performance, and now we're putting that type of data or that type of storage accessible in the cloud through high speed data links. Being able to use those native file type of functionality where we can actually use native file replication, replicate data to the cloud. Now it's in a cloud or a cloud infrastructure, and we can now move that data around through various clouds seamlessly to be able to take advantage of what those different service clouds offer. Maybe we move it from an AI cloud and then we're done with that and we move it to an archive type of cloud. It's really the ability to take advantage of native file services that are in the cloud and that data agility and performance.
When we talk a lot about the cloud, the other thing that comes up time and again is this idea of a consumption model, right? Pay by the drink, the electricity approach. You use your analogy you want. We've all heard it before. Is this also starting to be applied to the data world and the storage world, the as a service approach?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's really a game changer in terms of how the federal government and various agencies are going to acquire their infrastructure going forward. Yeah, because there's so much data, because the data infrastructure is so monolithic, or it can be, depending on the type of data and the agencies and what they're doing with the data. They've got to be able to have flexible consumption models that allow them to pay for what they're using. I talked about the difference between a scale up and a scale out type of architecture, and being able to do all that planning and to be able to put in a footprint that I can grow into over a period of time. But now it's like with the flexible consumption models that are coming to light, everything as a service, the agencies now have the ability to pay for only what they use. And that's huge. And it's also a big change in the color of money. It changes it from an operating, or it changes it from a capital expense to an operating expense. We've got consumption models out there now where an agency can figure out how much committed capacity they want, and they pay a monthly rate for that. But companies will put a buffered capacity on the floor. So maybe they've got a committed capacity of a petabyte, but they may run into data surges or something where they need 2 petabytes of capacity on the floor, just in case, and to be able to be prepared for those data loads when they occur. The flexible consumption models we have today allow you to procure that type of operating expense committed capacity, and then you basically, the old pay by the drip model, as the buffer increases, your rate, you'll have a rate card and you'll pay for the additional capacity as you consume it, and that capacity may go up and your consumption rate may go up for a period of time, and then it may drop off. So it really gets it into a very, very consumable model, as opposed to trying to budget for that and from a capital expenditure perspective over a 3 to 5 year period.
In this case, as you described it, if I'm an agency and I'm saying, okay, Ed, I want a petabyte and I'll pay X amount of dollars for that petabyte, but I also want to be able to go up to 2 petabytes if the time is needed, if the extra space is needed. Do I just need to have money set aside for that increase, or how does it work? Because I think a lot of agencies are worried about violating the Anti-Deficiency Act and and spending more money than they have. That's the big challenge with the consumption-based model.
Right. Yeah. Again, it's an operating expense, so the budgeting cycle is a little bit different. I mean, we're still working with agencies to understand, what their predictable consumption model is and what they need to be prepared for. And then there are, tiers of performance and capacity that have rates associated with them. So it's very predictable in terms of, budgeting and what they're going to potentially consume and at what cost. So they've got a clear understanding of what the costs are going to be up front before they go down the road.
I remember talking recently to one agency CIO, and he mentioned having what he called an IT cost manager. And I was very excited by it. I was like, is this a new position? And they go, well, it's more of a position that you see in the private sector where someone is actually looking day to day at the cost for the cloud so as not to do what you just said, going too far or spending too much money. Is that a type of position you're seeing other agencies starting to apply, or maybe not a full-time position, but somebody who's in charge of the consumption-based model?
Yeah, I think you really see that, under the charges of the newer innovative positions like a chief data officer or something like that, where they're really looking at, the holistic view of the data and the infrastructure around it. So they're looking at, where do I want my data? When, what type of data is it? What is my consumption model for the data? Where is that data residing at any given point in time? And how do I be reactive to the challenges and demands of the agency around that data model?
Ed, we're just about out of time. I've very much enjoyed our conversation, but before I let you go, what's our big takeaway from this as we've had this conversation for the last half hour or so? Agencies have big data problems. They're trying to manage their data. They're understanding storage. What are some of the things that, from your perspective that, when you talk to your customers, what are the questions that you hear time and again? What are the answers to those questions?
Yeah, as I've been saying all along through this interview, it's really having a data first strategy around your data, being able to track your data through its entire life cycle. The data growth problem is not going away. So you have to be able to build an agile and performant infrastructure from edge to core to cloud that's going to allow you to handle the challenges and demands of the agency's data over the entire life cycle.
And I think that's a key point. Handle it over the entire life cycle, not for the first 30 days or the first 60 days, but data lives a long time and you have to understand that life cycle. Ed, I've very much enjoyed our conversation. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. So let me thank my guest. Ed Kraychek is the manager of pre-sales engineers for the unstructured data business unit for Dell Technologies. Ed, thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I've really appreciated the experience.
I'm Jason Miller, and you've been listening to the discussion Innovation in Government, sponsored by Carahsoft on Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search innovation.